The first time it happened was in a day I woke up with a huge hangover. The drinking age is so stupid in the US. How can you operate a huge box of metal that constantly kills people at 16, but only have a simple beer 5 years later? I'm Barbara, age 19. I've been drinking with my boyfriend and his friends lately, and having the occasional joint, nothing different than most people my age. Last weekend, one of the boys brought LSD. One thing led to another, and I ended up having an unknown pill. Yeah, I know, that as a woman, I should be extra careful with these things. But I trust Mike, and I'm sure he wouldn't let anything bad happen to me. The pill was very small and generic, and I felt nothing different. Maybe Tyler, the friend who brought it, was just messing with us. I'm in college, but still living at my parents' house. I wanted to skip my classes that morning, but Mom hurried me out of bed. I couldn't let her know I've been drinking this much or having weird pills, so I had to go. After drinking lots of water and taking a cold bath, I left. My body felt heavy, my head felt terrible, and my mouth felt dry, but nothing I hadn't experienced before. I blacked out during my classes. It was awful going to my part-time job that afternoon. Everything felt so loud and bright. I had to ask my best friend from work to cover for me while I took a nap in the back room. It was fine. I had done the same favor to her before. I dreamed I was eating her hand and a customer's face. I thought it was funny. Working in retail is stressful enough to cause this kind of subconscious ideas. I finally got home, feeling immensely thankful for having someone else to cook for me. I would starve or spend too much in takeout if I lived alone. After dinner, I decided to go to bed early, with an extra large bottle of water and a handful of aspirins. I slept for a few hours until I woke up feeling terribly hungry. No, terribly hungry doesn't even begin to describe how it felt. It was like I never knew what food was before, like I had lived years in absolute starvation, and nothing in the world was more important or more urgent than eating. Eating real food. Eating something alive, with warm blood still pulsating inside it. The house was quiet and very dark, but I suddenly had eyes so well adjusted that I could see perfectly during the night, maybe even better than I could before in the light. Everyone was asleep, but I distinctively heard 3 heartbeats other than mine, and they sounded delicious. I started by my younger sister, Bethany. She always kept her leg out of the blanket, so I snatched that first. I was so hungry and so fast, she didn't even wake up while I feasted on her. She was like baby beef, small and full of fat, but this treat was not enough. I moved to my parents' bedroom. Dad was thin and had been muscular during his younger years, so his meat was surely tough. I started by Mom, chubby and tender. In the back of my mind, I had the sense that they were my family, but it was a fact that didn't matter. I was starving, and they were there. It was only natural that I would feed on their irresistible flesh. The only important thing was eating. Dad woke up when I was eating Mom's last leg. He had always been a light sleeper. I was being careless and messy, so the wall and part of the bed was completely tainted by her blood. As soon as I sensed Dad opening his eyes, I quickly jumped on him, suffocating his surprised cries with my bloodied hand. Mom didn't completely satisfy my hunger, but I was feeling better. I carefully teared through Dad's belly, eating only the juicier parts. After eating Bethany and Mom whole and Dad's internal organs, I went back to bed, leaving his remains there. Maybe I would wake up feeling like having a little leftover snack. This hunger, this speed, and these sharp senses were too new for me, and I didn't know what to expect. In fact, I barely acknowledged them. Everything felt natural, like it had always been this way. I went back to bed and slept until morning. For a glorious moment, I almost laughed it off like it was just a weird and realistic dream. However, I soon noticed that my face, hands, and pajamas were drenched in blood and screamed. "What happened, dear?" Mom came running to my bedroom, very alive. "What the hell, Barbara?" I didn't know what to say. I had no explanation for this, especially because she was alive. I had just devoured her, but she stood in front of me like nothing happened. Dad and Bethany came running to see what was going on. They were alive as well, despite the fact that I could still feel their metallic taste. Once delicious, it made me nauseous now. "Ew, did someone have their period on your face?" Bethany mocked me. She was getting sassier every day. "Shut up, Beth. Your sister's hurt," Dad scolded her. I ended up saying it was a terrible nosebleed because I've been sleepwalking and got hurt. I also said I was feeling sick, and it wasn't a lie. I looked awful, so Mom let me spend the day in bed. It was terrifying remembering how I'd torn apart my family's flesh. I puked more than 10 times along the day. Every time Mom brought me something to eat or Bethany checked on me, I couldn't help but cry. I felt disgusted, and scenes containing their dismembered, bloodied bodies flashed on my mind again and again. Too real, like I was reliving them every time. But it didn't stop me from waking up during the dawn again, feeling an unbearable urge to eat my whole family alive. And I did. I chewed them to the bones one more time, and the night after, and the night after. They were always alive when I woke up the next day, no matter how brutally I dilacerated their bodies. After 4 nights being eaten alive, I noticed my family started to change. By morning, all 3 of them looked worn out. Their skin was dry and grayish, and they had giant brown circles under their eyes. They seemed very under the weather, but nothing different happened. I ate them again that night. I should have tried to do something to restrain myself, or tie my own body to the bed, but I knew I was amazingly strong when I woke up hungry. I knew nothing would stop me from feeding on human flesh. The next day, Mom, Dad, and Bethany looked worse, grayer, slower, and generally creepier. Their skin looked like it was about to crumble and turn to ashes. They moved heavily, mechanically, tiredly. "Mom," Bethany said like she was in slow motion. "I don't feel good. I'm not going to school today." "I don't feel good either," Dad said in a grave and distorted voice. Let's just rest." My mother's voice was creepily sluggish as well. Unlike them, I never felt better. The feelings of guilt had disappeared, my skin was glowing, and my body was full of energy. Mom slowly turned her head to look at me, probably to ask if I felt ill too. But it was like she forgot how to use her body. Her neck spun a little too much and her flesh ripped off. You could see the muscles underneath, but instead of the normal color, they showed a sickly shade of purple. Neither Dad nor Bethany showed any kind of reaction. Very slowly, Mom readjusted her head in the right angle, using both hands. Her face was an expressionless mask, like Pain was something that belonged to a distant past. I'm so hungry. Hungry for real food. I'm hungry too, Dad and Beth echoed, like the creepiest choral. That night, I didn't wake up feeling hungry, but they did. They were by the side of my bed, begging me to feed them. So that's my situation now. I was turned into some kind of monster and ate 3 people. My family. Alive. After 5 days, I completely drained their vitality. Now they need to feed on others. I've been kidnapping my neighbors to nourish my starving family. And more people around me started to look grayish and slow. It's a damn plague, and it spreads exponentially. I wish I could find explanations, and I wish I never took that mystery pill. I can't seem to contact my boyfriend Mike or any of his friends, but I've been dreaming of Tyler laughing uncontrollably. The worst part is, after a few days not needing to eat during the dawn, I'm getting hungry again. Hungry for real food. If you were to ask them, they'll tell you the story of Bobo. Bobo was a cruel man, born with a black and twisted soul. But Bobo was also gifted. He was gifted with the love of all who saw his handsome face or heard his gentle voice. When he was young, he would steal gifts from his friends. Later, sometimes that day, he'd show the stolen item to them, surrounded by his friends. When the victim voiced his villainy, Bobo would refute. "No, this is mine. You must be mistaken." His friends would trust him faster than a heartbeat and turn on the accuser. Poor old Bobo, constantly getting attacked. Why couldn't they leave him alone? This was Bobo's game in youth. As horrible as it was, as he got older, his games got messier. Bobo got bored. In the village he lived, very occasionally, a child would go missing. The next night, their parents would be invited to dine at his mansion. They'd be served lavish meats, meticulously garnished and marinated. Midway through the meal, he'd tell them the truth. He'd tell them how they were eating their own children. You see, his voice was so magical by now, he knew he had nothing to fear. When he asked them to continue eating, they would. The parents would laugh and joke at his jokes as they fed on their progeny. Bobo played his games many times in the village. No one could stop him or even bear a grudge against him. Who could hate his voice? A drunk hated him. He had been one of his victims and lost his daughter. In sobriety, he loved him like all the rest. Only in his drunkenness did his true feelings surface and bubble over into a drunken tirade for all to hear. One day his tale came to the ears of a judge, the Red Judge of Paris. He must be hanged till death. Upon hearing this, the drunk sobered up and started sobbing and weeping, begging the judge for leniency for his daughter's murderer. Grabbing onto the judge's leg, he hollered, "Please, I swear my soul to you. Spare him." "Fine, I promise. Bobo will be arrested." With the drunk fell to the ground in relieved stupor, leaving the judge to think. The old judge knew arresting a man so charismatic would be impossible for him. That did not mean he'd forgotten, nor forgiven. Already a plan for Bobo's punishment had formed. The judge visited the house of an old woman. She had been a seamstress in her younger days. Now she lived alone in her hut at the edge of the great forest. The judge gave her instructions for the punishment, and in return, gave her a single copper coin. "Take it as the soul of the drunkard. A sin coerced is a sin nonetheless." The woman swallowed the coin and gave the judge a smile, with her blackened teeth and brown gums like gravestones in a cemetery. The judge did not return it. That night, when Bobo was in his bed, the window to his bedroom flew open. In crawled the old woman on all fours, moving like a thing that forgot how the human body functioned. Bobo did not call for his guards, for he wasn't afraid. Instead, he begged with his beautiful voice and cried with his beautiful eyes for mercy. His voice did not work, for the woman was deaf. His looks did not work, for the woman was blind. His tears did not work, for the woman was a witch. The woman carried out her work, deforming his face with her thread and needle. She cut his tongue out with her scissors, and finally pressed her boiling hot iron against his scalp to leave him permanently bald. When morning came, his guards found a pool of blood and the window open wide. Bobo had run away, from shame and horror at his new reflection. He wanders the forests now, with his disfigured form, cursed by the witch to live forever eternally hungry. His face so ugly, it scares even the dogs away. This isn't his end. If you see his hunched figure and blacked face among the trees approaching you, you must run. For Bobo's magic still hasn't left him. His blue eyes are still charmed. If you let him get close enough to you, you will look into his eyes and fall under his spell. You'll reach your hand to him. He'll bow down and kiss your hand like you were royalty. And one by one, he'll eat the fingers off your hand. For some reason, even when he can't satisfy his hunger entirely, he never does. He'll just leave you, handicapped for the rest of your life. I think it's because, even in death, he wants to laugh at us.